In the dim glow of a flickering candle, shadows dance across the walls, whispering of fears and wonders. In the heart of this darkness, one figure stands as a symbol of chaos and mystery: Satan. His name alone evokes shivers, an unsettling reminder of the age-old struggle between good and evil. But what is Satan really, and why does he hold such a powerful place in the stories and beliefs of so many cultures? Satan is more than just a figure of nightmares. He is a complex symbol that has evolved over millennia. His story begins in ancient times, long before he became the devil of Christian tradition. Early civilizations depicted him as a dark god or a chaotic force, a being that challenged the order of the universe. To them, Satan represented the unknown, the wild, the untamed aspects of existence that defy human control. In ancient Persia, there was Ungramenu, the spirit of darkness who opposed Ahura Mazda, the god of light. In Mesopotamia, deities like Pazuzu, with his fearsome face and monstrous form, were thought to bring chaos and disease. These early representations of satanic figures show a common thread. They embody the fears of a world that seemed so uncontrollable and unpredictable. As we move through time, Satan's role shifts. In the Hebrew Bible, he is not yet the embodiment of all evil but more of an adversary, a tester of faith. He appears as an accuser, challenging the righteousness of people, like Job, and testing their devotion to God. He's a figure who stirs conflict, but not yet the ultimate antagonist we might think of today. With the rise of Christianity, Satan's image transforms. He becomes the ultimate enemy of God, the personification of evil. This shift is partly shaped by the New Testament's portrayal of him as the tempter who seeks to lead people away from righteousness. He whispers doubts into the minds of the faithful, aiming to corrupt and destroy. His role intensifies from merely testing faith to actively opposing the divine will. Medieval Europe adds even more layers to this figure. The Dark Ages saw Satan depicted as a creature of pure malevolence, with horns, a tail, and a fiery realm of suffering. These images were not just for storytelling, they served as tools of fear, keeping people obedient through the threat of eternal damnation. The concept of Satan as the master of hell became a cornerstone of medieval religious teaching, influencing art, literature, and even politics. In contrast, the Renaissance period began to challenge these traditional views. Artists and thinkers started to portray Satan in more nuanced ways. He was no longer just a brute force of evil, but a character with depth and even a tragic element. In literature, he became a symbol of rebellion, a being who dared to defy the heavenly order. This new portrayal made people question the nature of good and evil, prompting them to think deeply about moral choices and the nature of rebellion. As the centuries roll on, Satan continues to evolve. In the Enlightenment era, when rationalism took hold, the idea of Satan was scrutinized and often ridiculed. He became less of a literal being and more of a symbol for human fears and psychological struggles. This shift highlights how beliefs about Satan are deeply intertwined with human thought and cultural changes. In modern times, Satan has been a figure in popular culture, often used to provoke or entertain. He appears in movies, books, and music, sometimes as a genuine force of evil, other times as a misunderstood anti-hero. This portrayal reflects contemporary struggles and anxieties, showing that Satan is not just a relic of the past, but a symbol that adapts to the needs of each era. Satan's role is not confined to Christianity alone. Similar figures appear in other religions and cultures, each embodying the struggle against order and good. In Islam, Iblis is a rebellious being who refuses to bow to Adam, representing pride and defiance. In Zoroastrianism, Ungramenu continues as a dark spirit opposing the divine. These variations show that the concept of a rebellious or antagonistic force is universal, touching on fundamental human experiences and fears. From ancient gods to modern symbols, Satan represents more than just evil. He embodies the primal fear of the unknown and the struggle against forces beyond our control. His story reflects our deepest anxieties and the way we confront them. As we look at Satan through different lenses and times, we see not just a figure of darkness but a complex symbol of the eternal battle between light and shadow. Under the scorching sun of the ancient Near East, shadows stretch long and mysterious across the land. In the heat of the desert, stories of powerful gods and dark spirits emerge, each one capturing the imagination and fear of those who tell them. Among these early tales, figures that hint at what we now recognize as Satan begin to take shape, revealing a fascinating evolution from ancient deities to the embodiment of darkness. In Mesopotamia, one of the world's oldest civilizations, myths spoke of terrifying beings that roamed the night, sowing chaos and fear. The demon Pazuzu, with his grotesque face and monstrous body, was believed to bring disease and misfortune. His image, with twisted features and fierce demeanor, was meant to frighten away real-life dangers. Though Pazuzu was not the devil as we know him today, he was a precursor to the dark figures that would follow. Traveling westward to ancient Egypt, we find the god Set, a deity who embodied the harsh and chaotic forces of nature. Set was associated with storms, deserts, and disorder. His fierce nature made him a figure of both awe and fear. He battled against Horus, the god of order and light, and epic struggles that mirrored the eternal conflict between chaos and harmony. Set's role as a challenger to the divine order hints at the themes that would later be embodied by Satan, representing the struggle against cosmic order. Further north, in ancient Canaan, the figure of Lilith emerges. Lilith is a shadowy character in the early texts, often depicted as a night demon who preys on pregnant women and infants. Though not yet the devil, Lilith's dark nature and her role as a disruptor of life point toward the evolving concept of malevolent forces. These early stories weave together a picture of darkness and fears that would influence the depiction of Satan in later traditions. As civilizations grew and cultures mingled, the image of these dark forces began to shift and coalesce. The early Hebrew Bible introduces Satan as a kind of heavenly accuser, a role that bears some resemblance to these earlier figures. He appears as an adversary, testing the faith of Job and acting as a challenger to the righteousness of humanity. This role as an accuser is different from the all-encompassing evil of the later Christian Satan, but it marks a crucial step in the evolution of this figure. With the rise of Christianity, the figure of Satan begins to take on new characteristics. Influenced by Greek and Roman ideas, Satan is increasingly depicted as the ultimate embodiment of evil. The devil becomes a powerful, personal enemy of God, a being who seeks to corrupt and destroy. This shift is significant, as it transforms Satan from a mere challenger to an embodiment of all that is opposed to divine goodness. Medieval Europe adds further layers to the satanic image. During this time, Satan is depicted as a grotesque, demonic figure with horns, a tail, and a fearsome visage. He is no longer just a tester of faith, but the ruler of hell and the source of all suffering and temptation. This portrayal serves as a powerful tool for enforcing religious doctrines, using fear to guide people's behavior and beliefs. The transformation from ancient deities to the modern concept of Satan is a testament to how human fears and struggles have shaped this figure over millennia. From the chaotic demons of Mesopotamia to the powerful adversary of Christianity, Satan's story is a reflection of our deepest anxieties and the ongoing battle between order and chaos. Each culture, with its unique fears and challenges, has contributed to the image of Satan, creating a figure who represents not just evil but also the complex interplay of darkness and light in human history. In the dusty, ancient world of the Hebrew Bible, the figure of Satan emerges not as the prince of darkness we think of today, but as something far more nuanced, a tester of faith, an accuser standing in the celestial courts. The story of Job brings this role into sharp focus, painting a picture of Satan that is both chilling and profoundly thought-provoking. In the book of Job, we meet Satan in a role that is surprisingly detached from the fiery pits of hell or the embodiment of pure evil. Instead, he appears as a sort of heavenly prosecutor, an accuser who walks among the divine assembly, challenging the righteousness of human beings. This role is pivotal and deeply unsettling. Satan, in this context, is not simply a force of malevolence, but a figure who tests the limits of human faith and virtue. Imagine Job, a man of unwavering faith, living a life of prosperity and peace. He is described as blameless and upright, a model of piety in a world where divine favor is seen as the ultimate blessing. But then, the scene shifts to the heavenly courts. Here, Satan appears, not as a monstrous villain, but as a member of the divine council, taking on the role of a skeptic. He questions Job's piety, suggesting that Job is faithful only because he has been blessed with prosperity. This moment is not just a test of Job's faith, but a dramatic confrontation that forces him, and us, to confront the nature of suffering and divine justice. Satan's challenge is both personal and cosmic. He doesn't accuse Job outright, but rather questions the very nature of righteousness. By suggesting that Job's piety is contingent upon his blessings, Satan introduces a chilling possibility that faith might be a mere transaction, and true devotion is tested in the face of suffering. This role of the accuser is both profound and unsettling, as it highlights the fragility of human virtue when stripped of earthly comforts. The scene in the heavenly court is a stark contrast to the fiery, demonic imagery that would come later. Here, Satan operates within a divine framework, challenging assumptions and pushing the boundaries of faith. He is not a dark lord ruling over hell, but a celestial figure who questions and probes, testing the depth of human devotion. As the story progresses, Job's suffering becomes intense and all-consuming. He loses his wealth, his health, and his family. Yet, amid this turmoil, Job's faith is tested in ways that are both harrowing and profound. His friends come to offer explanations, each one grappling with the nature of divine justice and the reasons for Job's suffering. They, too, are caught in the web of uncertainty that Satan's challenge has spun. The role of Satan in this narrative is not to cause chaos for its own sake, but to provoke a deeper understanding of faith. The pain and anguish Job endures serve to explore profound questions about the relationship between humans and the divine. Satan's role as the accuser is to push the boundaries of this relationship, revealing the raw, unvarnished truth about human suffering and divine purpose. This depiction of Satan is deeply haunting because it presents him as a necessary antagonist in the cosmic drama. His role is not just to inflict suffering, but to challenge the very foundations of faith. In doing so, he becomes a symbol of the trials that test our beliefs and the strength of our commitment to what we hold sacred. The character of Satan in the Hebrew Bible evolves from these early texts, reflecting the shifting perceptions of evil and adversity. He moves from a figure of celestial accusation to one who embodies the broader struggle between good and evil, between faith and doubt. This transformation is gradual and complex, shaped by centuries of religious thought and cultural change. In the book of Job, Satan's presence is a reminder of the deep and often painful exploration of faith. His role as the accuser challenges Job, and us, to confront the most profound questions about human suffering and divine justice. This portrayal is not just a story of conflict, but a profound exploration of the trials that define the human experience and the nature of our relationship with the divine. In the quiet hours of dawn, a figure emerges from the shadows, his presence as unsettling as the cold bite of early morning air. This figure is Satan, and in the New Testament, he steps into a role far more personal and sinister than ever before. His story in the Gospels unfolds in ways that are both poignant and terrifying, offering a glimpse into the heart of temptation and the struggle between good and evil. The Gospels introduce Satan in a new light, less as a distant adversary and more as a direct, intimate force of temptation. One of the most dramatic moments is the temptation of Christ in the wilderness. After fasting for 40 days and nights, Jesus is weak and vulnerable, and it is in this state of frailty that Satan comes to him, not as a distant force, but as a direct, personal antagonist. Satan's approach is cunning and calculated. He begins with an offer that seems almost reasonable, to turn stones into bread. To anyone who is starving, this would seem like a simple solution. Yet, this temptation is not just about physical hunger, it's a challenge to Jesus' mission and his reliance on divine sustenance. The temptation is about more than satisfying immediate needs, it's a test of Jesus' commitment to his purpose and the divine will. Satan's words are designed to exploit weakness, to turn Jesus away from his mission with the lure of immediate gratification. As the temptation progresses, Satan takes Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple and dares him to throw himself down, citing scripture to challenge Jesus to prove his divinity. This moment is not just a test of power, but a challenge to trust in God's protection without doubt. Satan's use of Scripture is a chilling reminder of how even sacred words can be twisted to serve a darker purpose. The temptation here is profound, to use divine power for personal gain and to test God's promises. The final temptation is the most striking. Satan offers Jesus all the kingdoms of the world, promising them in exchange for worship. Here, Satan tempts Jesus with worldly power and glory, a stark contrast to the humble path of suffering and sacrifice that Jesus is destined to follow. This offer is not just about political dominion but represents a shortcut to glory, bypassing the immense suffering that lies ahead. It's a profound test of Jesus' commitment to his mission and his rejection of earthly power in favor of divine purpose. In these moments, Satan's role is not just as a tempter but as a profound antagonist, challenging Jesus in ways that are deeply personal and intense. Each temptation is a direct assault on the core of Jesus' mission and his relationship with God. The struggle is not only physical but spiritual, a battle between immediate pleasure and eternal purpose, between human frailty and divine strength. The Gospels depict Satan as a relentless and cunning adversary, one who knows exactly where to strike and how to exploit vulnerabilities. His temptations are carefully crafted to test not just Jesus' physical endurance but his spiritual resolve. This portrayal of Satan is deeply unsettling because it shows him as a force that seeks to undermine the very essence of good, to exploit moments of weakness to turn one away from the path of righteousness. After these intense encounters, Jesus responds with unwavering resolve, rejecting each temptation with Scripture and faith. His responses highlight the power of spiritual strength and reliance on God's Word. This moment is not just a victory over temptation but a demonstration of profound trust and commitment to a higher purpose. Satan's role in the New Testament Gospels is thus portrayed with a chilling clarity. He is not a distant figure but a direct, personal threat who challenges the core of divine mission and faith. His temptations are crafted to exploit every weakness, every vulnerability, and his ultimate goal is to disrupt the divine plan by tempting Jesus to deviate from his path. This portrayal adds a deeply emotional layer to the struggle between good and evil, showing how personal and intense this battle can be. In the flickering light of early Christian communities, Satan's image begins to crystallize into a powerful symbol of evil, influenced heavily by the writings of the Church Fathers. These early theologians and writers shaped the understanding of Satan in ways that would leave a lasting impact on Christian thought and lore. The Church Fathers, like Ignatius of Antioch, Justin Martyr, and Irenaeus, wrote passionately about the nature of Satan and his role in the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Their writings were not just theological musings but were aimed at guiding and fortifying the faith of their communities amidst persecution and heresy. In this period, Satan's role expands beyond the New Testament depiction to become a more central figure in the Christian understanding of sin and temptation. Ignatius of Antioch, for example, warned his followers about the deceptive tactics of Satan. He portrayed Satan as a cunning adversary who sought to lead believers astray from the truth of Christ. Ignatius' letters were filled with vivid descriptions of the spiritual warfare believers faced. He emphasized the need for vigilance and faith to combat the wiles of this dark adversary. His words were meant to arm the faithful against the subtle and dangerous influence of Satan, portraying him as a real and present threat to spiritual well-being. Justin Martyr's writings add another layer to the understanding of Satan. He described Satan as the enemy of both God and humanity, a being who actively works to thwart the divine plan of salvation. Justin's accounts of Satan are deeply emotional, highlighting the relentless nature of this adversary who seeks to lead people away from the light of Christ. His works reflect a growing sense of urgency and fear about the power of Satan to disrupt the faith and mission of the early church. Irenaeus, another influential church father, contributed significantly to the development of satanic lore. He described Satan as the ultimate deceiver, a being who introduces false teachings and corrupts the truth of the gospel. Irenaeus' writings are filled with the drama of spiritual conflict, presenting Satan as a master of lies who seeks to undermine the teachings of Christ. He painted a picture of a cosmic battle where the stakes were nothing less than the eternal souls of humanity. This portrayal added a sense of grandiosity and danger to the concept of Satan, emphasizing the need for sound doctrine and spiritual resilience. The patristic writings of this era established Satan not just as a tempter but as a central antagonist in the cosmic drama of salvation. They described him as a being who had fallen from grace, whose pride and rebellion led him to oppose God's plan. This understanding of Satan as a fallen angel with a malevolent agenda was instrumental in shaping the Christian view of evil. The idea of Satan as a fallen being added a dramatic backstory to his role as the enemy of God and humanity, making his opposition to divine good more personal and intense. These early interpretations also introduced the concept of Satan as the ruler of a spiritual realm of darkness. The idea of a demonic kingdom, with Satan at its head, became a powerful image in Christian thought. This dark realm was seen as a place of suffering and deception, where Satan and his minions worked to deceive and ensnare the unwary. The imagery of this realm of darkness added a sense of fear and urgency to the early Christian understanding of spiritual warfare. The influence of these early writers extended far beyond their own time. Their interpretations of Satan laid the groundwork for future theological developments and popular beliefs. The portrayal of Satan as a fallen angel, a master deceiver, and a ruler of darkness became central to Christian teachings and lore. This image of Satan, shaped by the patristic writings, would continue to evolve but remained a potent symbol of evil and opposition to divine goodness. In these early writings, Satan emerges as a figure of profound emotional and spiritual significance. He is not merely a distant antagonist, but a personal and relentless adversary who challenges the faith and perseverance of believers. The Church Fathers' vivid depictions of Satan reflect the intense spiritual struggles faced by early Christians and underscore the dramatic and emotional nature of their faith. Their works shaped the enduring image of Satan as a powerful, personal force of evil, setting the stage for centuries of Christian thought and tradition. In the flickering candlelight of medieval churches and monasteries, the nature of evil and the role of Satan took on a profound and dramatic significance. As scholars wrestled with the complexities of faith and morality, Satan emerged not just as a figure of personal temptation but as a symbol of the very nature of evil itself. Medieval theologians grappled with the question of evil in a way that was both intense and deeply emotional. They saw evil not as a mere absence of good but as a tangible force, embodied by Satan, that actively worked to undermine the divine order. This period of theological development was marked by a deep sense of dread and urgency, as scholars sought to understand and combat the pervasive presence of evil in the world. One of the central figures in this intellectual struggle was Thomas Aquinas. His writings on Satan and the nature of evil reflected a complex and deeply felt concern about the spiritual dangers facing humanity. Aquinas viewed Satan as a fallen angel, a being of immense power who, out of pride and rebellion, had chosen to oppose God. This view of Satan was not just theological but also profoundly emotional, reflecting the intense fear and awe that medieval Christians felt towards this figure of darkness. Aquinas' perspective was that evil, represented by Satan, was a corruption of the good. Evil was seen as a perversion of God's creation, an attempt by Satan to disrupt the divine order. This view added a dramatic layer to the concept of Satan, portraying him as a force actively working against the good and beautiful world that God had created. The struggle between good and evil became a central theme in medieval theology, with Satan at the heart of this cosmic battle. Medieval theology also explored the nature of temptation and sin, further emphasizing Satan's role in leading people away from righteousness. The idea that Satan was actively working to tempt and corrupt humanity was deeply unsettling. He was seen not just as a distant figure but as a present and personal threat, using every means possible to lead souls astray. This portrayal made the fight against evil a daily, personal struggle for medieval Christians, adding a sense of urgency and fear to their spiritual lives. The fear of Satan and evil was also reflected in the medieval practice of exorcism. These rites were not just rituals but deeply emotional and dramatic events, performed to cast out demons and cleanse individuals from the influence of Satan. The intensity of these ceremonies reflects the profound anxiety and desperation felt by those who believed they were under the threat of demonic possession. The belief in Satan's power to harm and corrupt was so real that entire communities were mobilized to confront and combat this evil. Medieval art and literature further illustrate the dramatic role of Satan in Christian thought. Depictions of hell, demons, and the torment of the damned were not just cautionary tales, but vivid, emotional portrayals of the consequences of falling under Satan's influence. The imagery of Satan as a monstrous, fearsome figure who presided over the suffering of the damned served as a powerful reminder of the stakes involved in the struggle between good and evil. These depictions were designed to evoke fear and encourage moral vigilance, reflecting the deep emotional impact of satanic imagery on medieval Christians. This period also saw the rise of the idea that Satan's influence extended into the earthly realm, leading to the witch hunts and trials that would later become infamous. The belief that Satan was actively recruiting witches and heretics to undermine the church added a new layer of fear and paranoia. The trials and executions of those accused of witchcraft were driven by a profound sense of urgency and fear, reflecting the intense emotional and theological concern over Satan's perceived power and influence. The theological developments of medieval Christianity painted Satan as not just a distant figure of evil but as a personal, active threat in the lives of believers. The intense fear and dramatic portrayals of Satan during this time reflect the deep emotional impact of the struggle against evil. For medieval Christians, the fight against Satan was a matter of life and death, both spiritually and emotionally. The figure of Satan loomed large in their theological reflections and daily lives, shaping their understanding of evil and the cosmic battle between good and darkness. In the eerie glow of an infernal landscape, a chilling figure waits, bound in ice, his face twisted in agony and fury. This is the image of Satan that emerges from Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, a vision so vivid and haunting that it has left an indelible mark on Western perceptions of the devil. Dante's portrayal of Satan in his monumental work is both dramatic and deeply emotional. In the Inferno, the first part of the Divine Comedy, Satan is not a sleek, cunning figure but a grotesque, monstrous entity trapped in the frozen lake of Cocytus at the very heart of hell. This icy prison is a fitting cage for Satan, a being whose rebellion against divine order has led him to this frozen, desolate fate. The image Dante presents is chilling. Satan is depicted as a three-headed beast, each head gnawing on a notorious sinner, Judas Iscariot, Brutus, and Cassius. This grotesque portrayal serves as a stark representation of the ultimate betrayal and treachery, mirroring the profound nature of Satan's own rebellion against God. The way Dante describes Satan, trapped and powerless, is both a striking and horrifying reflection of the consequences of eternal defiance. Dante's vision of Satan is not just about physical appearance, but is also deeply symbolic. The icy environment of hell contrasts sharply with the fire and brimstone often associated with damnation. Here, Satan's punishment is a cold, unrelenting agony, a fitting end for someone whose pride and rebellion led him away from the warmth of divine grace. This depiction reflects the medieval understanding of sin and punishment, where the ultimate enemy is not merely suffering but a profound, isolating emptiness. The emotional weight of Dante's portrayal of Satan is immense. The image of Satan as a trapped, tortured soul resonates with a deep sense of tragedy and despair. His inability to move, his monstrous form, and his eternal suffering all evoke a profound sense of horror and pity. This depiction is designed to evoke a strong emotional response, highlighting the devastating consequences of defying divine order. Dante's vision of Satan has had a lasting impact on Western culture, shaping how the devil is perceived across literature, art, and popular culture. Before Dante, Satan was often seen in more abstract or varied forms. But Dante's detailed and dramatic portrayal crystallized many of these earlier images into a powerful, enduring icon of evil. His depiction of Satan as a grotesque, fallen figure bound in ice became a symbol of ultimate defeat and isolation, influencing countless subsequent representations of the devil. The vivid and emotional imagery of Dante's Satan has permeated Western thought and culture. Artists and writers have drawn on Dante's vision to depict Satan in various forms, often reflecting the same sense of horror and tragedy. From paintings to literature, the image of Satan as a monstrous, suffering figure continues to resonate, capturing the imagination and fear of those who encounter it. In literature, Dante's influence is seen in the way later writers have portrayed the devil. The dramatic and vivid descriptions of Satan's appearance and suffering in the Inferno have inspired numerous adaptations and interpretations, each one drawing on Dante's powerful imagery to explore themes of evil, punishment, and redemption. The lasting impact of Dante's vision can be seen in how it has shaped the archetype of Satan, turning him into a symbol of ultimate treachery and isolation. Dante's Divine Comedy also influenced the visual arts, where artists have depicted Satan in ways that echo Dante's descriptions. The monstrous, three-headed figure of Dante's hell has inspired countless works of art, each one reflecting the same emotional intensity and horror. This imagery has become a powerful tool for exploring the nature of evil and the consequences of defying divine authority. The emotional impact of Dante's portrayal of Satan extends beyond its visual and literary influence. It taps into deep-seated fears and anxieties about the nature of evil and the consequences of rebellion. By presenting Satan as a figure of ultimate suffering and isolation, Dante's work resonates with a profound sense of dread and tragedy. This portrayal serves as a powerful reminder of the stakes involved in the struggle between good and evil, capturing the emotional and spiritual depth of this eternal conflict. Dante's depiction of Satan in the Divine Comedy stands as a powerful testament to the lasting impact of his vision on Western perceptions of the devil. The dramatic and emotional portrayal of Satan as a monstrous, suffering figure has shaped the way we think about evil and its consequences, leaving a lasting imprint on our cultural and spiritual understanding of this dark figure. In the dark, shadowy corners of medieval towns, a chilling fear took hold, a fear that Satan was not only real but actively working to corrupt the very fabric of society. This fear fueled one of the most haunting and tragic chapters in history, the witch hunts and trials. The figure of Satan loomed large in these events, shaping how people perceived witchcraft and the grim rituals associated with it. The witch hunts were driven by a fear that Satan was weaving a web of corruption through witches, people who were believed to have made pacts with the devil. Accusations flew, often based on scant evidence or personal vendettas, leading to a frenzy of trials and executions. The air was thick with paranoia, and the community's sense of security was shattered by the belief that Satan's influence was lurking in their midst, hiding in plain sight. The concept of satanic pacts was central to the witch hunts. To make a pact with Satan was thought to be the ultimate betrayal of God. It was believed that witches had exchanged their souls for worldly power or supernatural abilities. This belief was deeply unsettling because it suggested that Satan was actively working to lure people away from God, using promises of power and pleasure. The idea that someone could willingly surrender their soul to such a malevolent force was both terrifying and profoundly tragic. The rituals associated with witchcraft added another layer of horror. The supposed ceremonies where witches would gather to worship Satan, often described as perverse and blasphemous, fueled public fear. These rituals were imagined as dark, secretive gatherings where Satan's power was invoked to cause harm or defy God. The descriptions of these rituals were often lurid and sensationalized, reflecting the intense fear and moral outrage of the time. The belief in these rituals contributed to a climate of fear and suspicion, where anyone could be accused of witchcraft and punished harshly. The trials themselves were marked by intense and often brutal interrogation methods. Suspected witches were subjected to torture to extract confessions, often leading to false admissions of guilt. The pressure to confess, combined with the fear of execution, drove many to make shocking claims about their supposed dealings with Satan. These confessions, often made under duress, were used as proof of satanic influence, further fueling the hysteria. The societal impact of these trials was profound. Families were torn apart by accusations and executions, and entire communities were gripped by fear and suspicion. The shadow of Satan seemed to loom over everyday life, transforming ordinary interactions into a battleground of faith and fear. The witch hunts were not just a struggle against supposed witchcraft, but a reflection of deeper anxieties about the presence and power of evil in the world. The emotional impact of these events is still felt today. The fear of Satan and the belief in his power to corrupt and destroy led to immense suffering and injustice. The stories of innocent people accused of witchcraft, tortured, and executed are haunting reminders of the destructive power of fear and superstition. The trials were a manifestation of the deep-seated anxiety about evil that characterized the period, showing how the figure of Satan could stir intense and tragic responses. The legacy of the witch hunts is a chilling testament to the power of fear and the human capacity for cruelty. The image of Satan as an active force working through witches, combined with the horrific practices of the trials, left a dark mark on history. The impact of these events reverberates through history, serving as a sobering reminder of the consequences of allowing fear and suspicion to overshadow reason and compassion. In the vibrant swirl of Renaissance art and literature, Satan emerged as a complex and evocative figure, reflecting the era's evolving perceptions of evil and morality. This period, marked by a burst of creativity and intellectual exploration, breathed new life into the age-old figure of the devil, transforming him into a symbol that resonated deeply with the anxieties and aspirations of the time. Artists of the Renaissance, such as Hieronymus Bosch and Michelangelo, portrayed Satan in ways that captured the imagination and fear of the age. Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights presents a surreal and terrifying vision of hell, where Satan appears as a monstrous figure, both grotesque and mesmerizing. His depiction of hell is a nightmarish landscape of despair and depravity, where Satan's presence is a constant, looming threat. This portrayal reflects the era's fascination with the extremes of human experience, blending horror with a macabre sense of beauty. Michelangelo's work also offers a striking representation of Satan. In the Sistine Chapel, Satan appears as a tortured and anguished figure, not merely as a personification of evil but as a deeply troubled being, embodying the consequences of rebellion against divine order. The emotional depth of Michelangelo's portrayal adds a layer of tragic grandeur to Satan, presenting him not just as a villain but as a fallen angel suffering for his defiance. Literary works of the Renaissance similarly explored new dimensions of Satan. John Milton's Paradise Lost, published in the 17th century, is one of the most profound literary examinations of Satan. Milton's Satan is a character of immense complexity, a fallen angel who famously declares that it is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Milton's portrayal is both captivating and disturbing, as he delves into Satan's inner turmoil and pride. This depiction transformed Satan from a simple antagonist into a tragic hero of sorts, challenging readers to empathize with his defiance and suffering. The Renaissance shift in the perception of Satan was profound. Previously, Satan was often seen as a purely evil force, a straightforward embodiment of darkness. But during this period, Satan began to be depicted with more nuance and depth. Artists and writers started to explore the psychological and emotional dimensions of Satan, reflecting a broader shift in how evil and rebellion were understood. This period marked a move away from viewing Satan solely as a source of terror and toward seeing him as a tragic, complex figure whose actions were rooted in profound internal conflict. The Renaissance also saw a growing interest in humanism, which influenced how Satan was perceived. As thinkers began to focus more on human experience and potential, the figure of Satan became a symbol of rebellion against divine authority and an exploration of human free will. This new perspective allowed for a more nuanced understanding of evil, one that considered personal choice and existential struggle. The emotional impact of these representations is significant. The Renaissance transformed Satan from a mere figure of fear into a symbol of deeper human conflict and defiance. The tragic grandeur of Milton's Satan, combined with the nightmarish visions of Bosch and the anguished depictions by Michelangelo, created a new, complex image of the devil. This shift added layers of emotional and psychological depth to the character, reflecting the era's fascination with the darker aspects of human nature and the consequences of challenging divine order. The Renaissance also sparked a broader cultural shift in how Satan was understood and depicted. The increased focus on individualism and personal struggle led to portrayals of Satan that explored themes of pride, ambition, and rebellion in new and profound ways. This evolving perception of Satan mirrored the era's broader cultural and intellectual changes, reflecting a deepening understanding of human nature and the complexities of good and evil. In the Renaissance, Satan became a figure of both dread and fascination, embodying the profound struggles of the human condition. The period's artistic and literary explorations of Satan added new dimensions to his character, transforming him from a simple antagonist into a symbol of deep, tragic complexity. These portrayals captured the emotional and psychological intensity of the time, reflecting a broader cultural shift in the understanding of evil and the nature of rebellion. In the Age of Enlightenment, a sweeping wave of reason and skepticism began to reshape humanity's understanding of the world, and with it, the figure of Satan. Where once he was a symbol of ultimate evil, he began to be scrutinized through the lens of rational thought, revealing a profound shift in the perception of this dark figure. As the Enlightenment progressed, thinkers started to question the existence of supernatural entities, including Satan. The rise of rationalism and scientific inquiry led many to view Satan not as a literal being but as a symbol created by human imagination and fear. This shift marked a dramatic departure from earlier views, where Satan was seen as a real and present threat. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and empirical evidence challenged traditional beliefs about Satan. Philosophers and scientists argued that the idea of a devil was a product of ignorance and superstition, rather than a real entity with tangible influence. This rationalist perspective sought to replace the fear of Satan with a belief in human capacity for understanding and improvement. The notion that Satan could be an actual force of evil was increasingly viewed as a relic of a bygone era, overshadowed by the growing belief in human reason and progress. One of the most striking critiques came from figures like Voltaire and David Hume, who questioned the logic behind the belief in Satan and other supernatural beings. Voltaire, with his sharp wit, challenged the traditional stories of demons and hell, suggesting they were nothing more than fanciful tales designed to control and scare people. Hume, on the other hand, argued that belief in miracles and supernatural occurrences, including those involving Satan, lacked empirical support and were thus unreliable. These critiques resonated deeply with a society increasingly driven by skepticism and a desire for rational understanding. The Enlightenment thinkers' new perspectives on Satan were not just academic, they had a profound impact on the broader cultural and emotional landscape. The fear that once gripped people when they thought of Satan began to wane as reason and evidence took precedence. The concept of Satan as a real, personal force of evil gave way to a view of him as a metaphorical representation of human failings and moral dilemmas. The emotional intensity associated with Satan also began to shift. The terror and dread that had been hallmarks of earlier representations were replaced by a more detached and analytical approach. The figure of Satan, once a powerful symbol of cosmic struggle and personal temptation, was now seen as a concept that could be examined and debated rather than feared and worshipped. This transformation brought about a significant change in how people experienced and understood the concept of evil. In literature and art, the Enlightenment's impact on the depiction of Satan was profound. Writers and artists began to portray him with a critical eye, often using him as a symbol of irrationality or ignorance rather than a direct embodiment of evil. Works from this period reflect a more nuanced and skeptical view, exploring the figure of Satan as a product of human imagination and cultural constructs. The Enlightenment and Rationalism introduced a new way of thinking about the supernatural, including Satan. The fear and reverence once associated with him were challenged by a growing belief in reason and evidence. As people began to question and critique the traditional narratives surrounding Satan, the emotional and cultural weight of his figure transformed, reflecting broader shifts in human understanding and belief. In the quiet, everyday moments of modern life, a figure of ancient lore still stirs unease and contemplation: Satan. Today, his role in Christianity remains a powerful, though often contested, symbol of evil and moral struggle. Contemporary Christianity offers a range of views on Satan, reflecting the diverse beliefs within the faith. For some, Satan is a literal being, a real entity whose presence is felt in the struggles between good and evil. This perspective holds that Satan actively seeks to lead people astray, tempting them away from righteousness and towards sin. In this view, he is not merely a symbol but a real adversary, working behind the scenes to undermine faith and virtue. For others, especially within more liberal or progressive circles, Satan is seen as a metaphor rather than a literal being. In these interpretations, Satan represents the forces of moral and spiritual darkness that challenge believers. This view sees Satan as a symbol of the internal and external struggles that every person faces, the temptation to give in to base instincts, the difficulties of maintaining integrity, and the broader challenges of navigating a complex world. Modern Christian doctrine often reflects this dual approach. In traditional teachings, Satan is portrayed as the ultimate antagonist, a being whose fall from grace represents the archetypal struggle between good and evil. He is frequently depicted in sermons and writings as a tempter who aims to disrupt the faithful's relationship with God. The stories of his deception and rebellion against God serve as powerful reminders of the consequences of defying divine order. At the same time, contemporary theology sometimes emphasizes a more nuanced understanding. Some modern Christian perspectives focus less on Satan as a literal figure and more on the moral lessons his story embodies. The focus shifts to the importance of resisting temptation and the need for vigilance in spiritual life. Satan becomes less of a personal enemy and more of a symbol of the broader spiritual battles that believers face daily. The role of Satan in modern Christian doctrine is also reflected in the way the faith addresses the nature of evil and suffering. Many contemporary Christians grapple with the problem of evil and suffering in a world that is often harsh and unjust. In this context, Satan's role can be seen as part of the explanation for the existence of evil, helping to make sense of why bad things happen despite a belief in a benevolent and all-powerful God. This perspective provides a way to understand the presence of suffering as part of a larger cosmic struggle. The emotional impact of modern interpretations of Satan varies widely. For those who view him as a literal force, the figure of Satan continues to evoke fear and vigilance. The notion that there is a real and active adversary working to lead people away from God can be deeply unsettling, reinforcing the need for spiritual fortitude and prayer. This belief can make the fight against temptation feel intensely personal and immediate. On the other hand, viewing Satan as a metaphor can shift the emotional weight of his role. Rather than a distant, supernatural foe, Satan becomes a symbol of the internal and external struggles that shape human experience. This approach can lead to a more introspective and personal understanding of evil, focusing on the internal battles people face and the moral choices they must make. In modern Christian practice, the figure of Satan continues to play a role in teaching and preaching, though the emphasis may vary. Whether seen as a literal being or a powerful symbol, Satan remains a potent reminder of the ongoing struggle between good and evil. His presence in modern Christianity reflects the ongoing quest to understand and confront the darker aspects of human existence, making his story as relevant today as it has ever been. In the dimly lit corners of history, where shadows intertwine with whispers of forbidden knowledge, the figure of Satan has taken on new and unsettling dimensions through occult practices and modern Satanism. The journey into this darkened world is one of profound transformation, marked by a blend of ancient rites and contemporary reimaginings. The roots of occult practices stretched back through centuries of mysticism and secret traditions. In medieval Europe, the occult was a term used to describe hidden or esoteric knowledge, often tied to ancient beliefs about magic and the supernatural. During these times, the practice of occultism was shrouded in secrecy, feared and misunderstood. The figure of Satan often loomed large in these practices, depicted as a powerful, malevolent force that could be summoned through rituals and spells. This portrayal reflected the fear and fascination with evil, blending with the era's deep-seated beliefs about the devil and the supernatural. As history progressed, the occult evolved, incorporating various elements from different cultures and traditions. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, the occult gained a renewed interest, influenced by movements such as spiritualism and the rise of secret societies. This period saw a resurgence of rituals and beliefs associated with Satan, though often in more symbolic or philosophical forms. The fascination with the occult during this time was driven by a desire to explore hidden knowledge and challenge established norms, including traditional religious views on Satan. In the 20th century, modern Satanism emerged as a more organized movement, shaped by figures who sought to redefine the role of Satan. One of the most prominent figures was Anton LaVey, who founded the Church of Satan in 1966. Levi's philosophy was rooted in the idea that Satan was a symbol of individualism, rebellion, and self-empowerment rather than a literal being. His work, including the Satanic Bible, outlined a philosophy that embraced personal gratification and challenged conventional religious morality. Levi's vision of Satan was as a powerful archetype representing human desires and instincts, rather than a supernatural entity. Another significant figure in modern Satanism is Michael Aquino, who founded the Temple of Set in 1975. Aquino's approach differed from Levi's in its emphasis on the worship of Set, an ancient Egyptian deity, as a symbol of individual potential and self-deification. Aquino's writings, such as the Satanic Rituals, reflect a more nuanced view of Satan and related figures, presenting them as symbols of self-empowerment and enlightenment rather than mere opposition to religious orthodoxy. The emotional impact of these modern interpretations is profound. For followers of modern Satanism, Satan is not a figure of fear, but one of personal liberation and empowerment. The rituals and texts of modern Satanism challenge traditional religious norms and offer a new perspective on human nature and spiritual practice. This reinterpretation of Satan as a symbol of personal strength and freedom can be both empowering and controversial, reflecting a deep-seated desire to question and redefine established beliefs. The historical roots of occult practices and the evolution of modern Satanism reveal a complex and often disturbing relationship with the figure of Satan. From ancient rituals shrouded in secrecy to contemporary reinterpretations, Satan has been a central figure in exploring the boundaries of knowledge and belief. The practices and texts associated with modern Satanism continue to provoke strong reactions, challenging conventional ideas about good, evil, and the nature of human desires. In this exploration of the occult and Satanism, the figure of Satan emerges not only as a symbol of fear and malevolence, but also as a powerful representation of human struggle and aspiration. The emotional and psychological impact of these beliefs and practices is a testament to the ongoing fascination with the darker aspects of human experience and the quest for deeper understanding. In the flickering lights of cinema, the turning pages of novels, and the haunting strains of music, Satan has become a figure of intense fascination and fear. Popular culture has reimagined this ancient symbol in ways that captivate, terrify, and intrigue audiences, reshaping the devil into a character that reflects contemporary anxieties and creative visions. In literature, Satan often takes center stage as a charismatic villain or a symbol of rebellion and chaos. John Milton's Paradise Lost established a foundation for literary portrayals of Satan, presenting him as a tragic figure of immense complexity and defiance. This portrayal has echoed through centuries of literature, influencing countless works. In modern novels, Satan is depicted in various forms, from the cunning antagonist in thrillers to a more metaphorical embodiment of inner turmoil and moral conflict. The emotional weight of these depictions often reflects deeper fears about human nature and the struggle between good and evil. Film has given Satan a vivid and often horrifying presence. From classic horror films like The Exorcist to modern interpretations such as The Witch and Hereditary, Satan is portrayed as a formidable force of malevolence, capable of inspiring sheer terror. These films tap into primal fears and anxieties, creating imagery that lingers long after the credits roll. The emotional impact of these portrayals is profound, eliciting visceral reactions from audiences and reinforcing the devil's role as a symbol of ultimate evil and dread. In music, satanic imagery has also found a place, particularly in genres like heavy metal and punk. Bands like Black Sabbath and Slayer use satanic themes to provoke, challenge, and entertain. The dark and rebellious imagery in their lyrics and performances often explores themes of rebellion against societal norms and the exploration of taboo subjects. The powerful emotions conveyed through this music, anger, defiance, and existential dread, highlight the devil's role as a symbol of personal freedom and rebellion against oppressive forces. Popular media has had a significant impact on how Satan is perceived and understood. The dramatic and often sensationalized portrayals in films and music can shape public perceptions, reinforcing certain stereotypes while also challenging others. The vivid imagery and compelling stories contribute to a broader cultural dialogue about good, evil, and the nature of human desires. The emotional resonance of these portrayals cannot be understated. Whether through the chilling atmosphere of a horror film, the intense drama of a novel, or the raw energy of music, Satan remains a powerful symbol that evokes strong reactions. These representations tap into deep-seated fears and curiosities, reflecting and shaping contemporary attitudes towards morality, rebellion, and the unknown. As Satan continues to be depicted in popular culture, he evolves in response to changing societal values and artistic expressions. Each portrayal adds a new layer to his complex character, revealing different facets of human experience and creativity. The impact of popular media on satanic imagery demonstrates the enduring power of this ancient symbol and its ability to provoke thought, inspire creativity, and evoke profound emotional responses. In the rich tapestry of world religions, the figure of Satan, or its equivalent, emerges in various forms, embodying the struggle between light and darkness, good and evil. Each culture and belief system crafts its own interpretation of these forces, weaving unique narratives that reveal profound truths about human fears and moral dilemmas. In Islam, the counterpart to Satan is Iblis, a figure deeply entwined with the concepts of pride and rebellion. Iblis, once a devout worshipper of God, was cast out of heaven for refusing to bow to Adam. His defiance and subsequent fall make him a potent symbol of pride and disobedience. Unlike the Christian devil, Iblis is not seen as the ultimate embodiment of evil, but rather as a tempter who seeks to lead humans astray. His role is to test believers and challenge their faith. This nuanced depiction underscores a different dimension of evil, not a force of cosmic chaos, but a personal adversary whose primary purpose is to mislead and test the faithful. Zoroastrianism offers a striking parallel with its figure Engramenyu, also known as Ahriman. Engramenyu is the embodiment of chaos and lies, opposed to Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of light and truth. The struggle between Engramenyu and Ahura Mazda represents a cosmic battle between good and evil, echoing themes found in the stories of Satan. Engramenyu's role is to sow discord and temptation, creating a world where humans must choose between the path of righteousness and the path of corruption. This duality mirrors the Christian and Islamic concepts of Satan, but is set within a broader cosmic framework of opposing forces. In other ancient traditions, similar figures appear with their own unique traits. In ancient Mesopotamian mythology, for example, demons like Lamashtu and Pazuzu played roles that intersected with the idea of malevolent forces. Lamashtu, a demoness feared for her attacks on pregnant women and infants, represented a personal threat akin to the fears evoked by satanic figures in other cultures. Pazuzu, a demon associated with illness and plagues, further emphasizes the ancient concern with malignant supernatural forces that could bring harm and suffering. Despite the differences in these figures, a common thread runs through them: the struggle between good and evil, order and chaos. These figures are often seen as embodiments of human fears and the challenges individuals face in their moral and spiritual lives. They represent the darker aspects of existence that test human resolve and faith, shaping how communities understand the nature of evil and the means to confront it. The emotional resonance of these figures varies but remains powerful. In Islam, the story of Iblis evokes a deep sense of the consequences of pride and disobedience, stirring reflection on personal humility and faith. The cosmic battle in Zoroastrianism speaks to the grand scale of moral and spiritual conflict, emphasizing the importance of choosing the path of light. Ancient demons like Lamashtu and Pazuzu tap into primal fears of harm and suffering, illustrating the personal and immediate nature of evil. Each of these figures, from Iblis to Engramenyu and the ancient demons, serves to embody the universal struggle against darkness. Their stories and roles reflect different cultural and religious responses to the presence of evil in the world, showing how deeply ingrained the fear of malevolent forces is across human history and belief systems. In examining these parallels, we gain insight into how different cultures and religions grapple with the concept of evil. The similarities in their stories highlight a shared human experience, the confrontation with forces that challenge our understanding of morality and our ability to navigate the complexities of life. The differences reveal the unique ways each tradition interprets these challenges, offering a rich tapestry of beliefs that speak to the diverse ways humanity seeks to understand and combat the darkness within and around us. In the quiet moments of philosophical reflection, Satan emerges not merely as a figure of evil but as a powerful symbol of rebellion and freedom. Through the lens of philosophy, the devil takes on a complex and often inspiring role, challenging established norms and embodying the quest for individual autonomy. For centuries, philosophers have grappled with the figure of Satan, not just as a character from religious texts, but as a profound symbol of resistance and self-determination. The devil's most famous portrayal as a rebel comes from John Milton's Paradise Lost. Here, Satan is depicted as a tragic hero who defies the divine order, casting aside heaven's authority in favor of his own principles. This depiction resonates deeply with the human experience of questioning authority and seeking one's own path. Satan's refusal to bow before God is portrayed not just as an act of defiance, but as a quest for personal integrity and freedom. This interpretation elevates him from a mere antagonist to a figure embodying the struggle for self-realization against overwhelming odds. This philosophical view of Satan as a symbol of rebellion finds echoes in Enlightenment thought, where figures like Voltaire and Jean-Jacques Rousseau saw in Satan a representation of the fight against tyranny and oppression. During this era, Satan was often seen as an emblem of resistance against unjust authority and blind obedience. For these thinkers, Satan's rebellion against divine authority mirrored their own resistance against earthly despotism and oppressive institutions. The devil, in this light, becomes a champion of the human spirit's quest for autonomy and justice, challenging the status quo and advocating for a more enlightened and equitable society. In modern philosophy, the image of Satan as a symbol of freedom continues to be influential. Existentialist thinkers, like Friedrich Nietzsche, have drawn on the figure of Satan to illustrate the struggle for personal authenticity and the courage to forge one's own path. Nietzsche's famous proclamation that God is dead echoes the themes of rebellion found in Paradise Lost. Just as Satan defies heaven, Nietzsche challenges traditional religious and moral values, urging individuals to create their own meaning and values in a world devoid of inherent purpose. In this context, Satan represents the existential struggle against imposed limitations and the quest for personal liberation. The emotional impact of these philosophical interpretations is profound. The figure of Satan, when viewed through the lens of rebellion and freedom, transforms from a mere symbol of evil into a powerful emblem of the human spirit's resilience and quest for self-expression. This portrayal resonates with those who feel constrained by societal norms or personal circumstances, offering a vision of courage and defiance in the face of adversity. In this philosophical framework, Satan's role is not to instill fear but to inspire. His rebellion is seen as an act of profound bravery, challenging the constraints imposed by authority and advocating for a life lived on one's own terms. This interpretation taps into the universal human desire for freedom and the struggle against forces that seek to limit personal potential. As the figure of Satan continues to be examined through philosophical lenses, his role as a symbol of rebellion and freedom remains a compelling and transformative aspect of his character. By understanding Satan in this way, we gain insight into the deeper struggles and aspirations that define the human experience, highlighting the enduring power of this figure to provoke thought and inspire change. In the shadowy corners of the human mind, where fears and desires intertwine, the figure of Satan often emerges as a powerful psychological construct. Far beyond the realm of religious dogma and folklore, Satan serves as a mirror reflecting the deepest anxieties and unspoken longings that haunt the human psyche. Consider the image of Satan not just as a literal entity but as a symbol of our internal struggles. In psychological terms, Satan can be seen as a representation of the darker aspects of human nature, those parts of ourselves that we often try to ignore or suppress. He embodies the fear of the unknown, the dread of our own moral failings, and the anxieties about the chaotic forces that seem to lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. This figure of darkness resonates with our most primal fears, the kind that lurk in the recesses of our minds and challenge our sense of control and stability. From a psychological perspective, Satan's role extends into our understanding of inner conflict. He personifies the internal battles we face, those moments of moral ambiguity where the line between right and wrong blurs, and the temptations of desire conflict with our ethical beliefs. In this light, Satan represents the darker impulses and desires that every person grapples with, making him a symbol of the internal chaos that can disrupt our sense of self. His presence in our minds can trigger a profound examination of our values and the fears that challenge our understanding of ourselves. Satan's role also includes highlighting the profound fears and insecurities that shape our behaviors and beliefs. For instance, the fear of failure or the anxiety about losing control can manifest as an externalized satanic figure in dreams or fantasies. This externalization allows us to confront and examine these fears more directly, providing a way to address and understand the inner turmoil that drives us. By projecting our anxieties onto a figure like Satan, we create a space to explore and address the emotional and psychological challenges that we might otherwise struggle to articulate. Furthermore, the concept of Satan as a psychological construct can help us understand our desires and motivations. In many ways, Satan represents the allure of forbidden knowledge and the temptation to explore the boundaries of our own limitations. This can manifest in the pursuit of personal goals that challenge societal norms or in the desire to break free from conventional constraints. By examining these desires through the lens of Satan, we gain insight into the motivations that drive us to push against the limits of our own experiences and expectations. The emotional impact of viewing Satan as a psychological construct is profound. It allows us to confront and make sense of our inner fears and desires in a tangible way. The figure of Satan becomes a vessel through which we can explore our deepest anxieties and the parts of ourselves that we might otherwise keep hidden. This exploration can lead to greater self-awareness and understanding, providing a framework for addressing the complexities of our own psychological landscapes. As we consider Satan through this psychological lens, we see a figure that transcends mere symbolism and becomes a central part of the process of self-discovery and emotional growth. He represents the shadows within us, the fears, desires, and conflicts that shape our understanding of who we are. By engaging with this figure, we open ourselves to a deeper exploration of our inner worlds, gaining insight into the emotional and psychological forces that drive us. In the ancient texts of Jewish mysticism, Satan takes on a role that is as complex and profound as it is unsettling. Here, he is not just a single figure but a part of a broader cosmic struggle between light and darkness. The Kabbalistic tradition offers a view of Satan that is both mystical and deeply symbolic, revealing a layer of spiritual and existential conflict that is profoundly human. In Kabbalistic thought, Satan is not merely an embodiment of evil but a manifestation of the Sitra Achra, which translates to the other side or the side of impurity. This concept refers to the spiritual realm that exists in opposition to the divine light of the Sitrad Kedusha, or the side of holiness. The Sitra Achra represents the forces that challenge and obstruct the divine flow of goodness and purity. Within this framework, Satan embodies the chaotic, disruptive energies that seek to lead humanity away from divine unity and spiritual harmony. Picture a cosmic battlefield where divine light is constantly contested by dark forces. The Sitra Achra is not a force that is external and separate but is intimately connected with the divine structure of creation. It acts as a counterbalance to the divine light, representing the complexity and duality inherent in the spiritual universe. In this context, Satan is seen as a necessary force within the divine plan, a way for the complexity of human experience to be expressed and understood. The emotional weight of this view of Satan is deeply profound. He becomes more than just an antagonist, he is a symbol of the struggles and conflicts that define the human experience. He represents the challenges that test our faith and our capacity for goodness. His role in the mystical tradition is to provoke thought and to drive individuals towards spiritual growth and self-realization. By confronting the Sitra Achra, individuals are forced to grapple with their own inner darkness and to seek greater alignment with the divine light. The mystical teachings reveal that the presence of the Sitra Achra is not an indication of a malevolent force out to destroy, but rather a part of the divine balance that fosters growth and transformation. The struggle against this other side is seen as an essential part of the spiritual journey. It is through this struggle that individuals are able to achieve a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the universe. The trials and temptations presented by the Citra Acra serve as catalysts for spiritual awakening and personal development. As one contemplates this mystical view of Satan, there is a profound sense of both dread and awe. The idea that Satan is intertwined with the divine order challenges simplistic notions of good and evil. It forces a recognition that within the divine plan, there exists a dynamic interplay between light and darkness, purity and impurity. This realization can be both unsettling and enlightening, as it reflects the complexities and depths of human existence. In Jewish mysticism, Satan's role is far from straightforward. He is a figure who embodies the tension between opposing forces within the spiritual realm. His presence as part of the Citra Acra reflects a deeper understanding of the cosmic balance and the role of struggle in the pursuit of spiritual growth. This view offers a unique perspective on the nature of evil and the challenges that individuals face in their quest for divine connection and personal transformation. Through this lens, Satan becomes not just a symbol of opposition but a catalyst for profound spiritual insight and growth. For centuries, Satan has been painted as the ultimate antagonist, a symbol of everything that opposes divine good. Yet, in a fresh and empowering light, some feminist interpretations reframe Satan as a powerful figure of rebellion and liberation. This reinterpretation is not merely about opposing traditional views, but about reclaiming and transforming a symbol to reflect deeper truths about strength, autonomy, and resistance. At the heart of this reinterpretation is the idea that Satan, often vilified and demonized, can be seen as a symbol of feminist rebellion against oppressive structures. In many traditional religious narratives, women have been cast in roles of subservience and restriction. The figure of Satan, as one who defies divine authority and refuses to accept imposed limitations, resonates with the feminist struggle for equality and freedom. By challenging the established order, Satan becomes a powerful symbol of resistance against patriarchal and authoritarian systems. Consider how Satan's rebellion in Paradise Lost is transformed into an emblem of feminist defiance. Milton's Satan refuses to bow to the divine authority, embodying a spirit of defiance and self-determination. This defiance can be reimagined as a metaphor for the feminist struggle against societal norms that confine and restrict women. The devil's refusal to accept a subordinate role mirrors the feminist demand for autonomy and equal rights. In this light, Satan's rebellion becomes a rallying cry for breaking free from oppressive constraints and forging a path towards liberation. Furthermore, feminist interpretations often focus on the symbolism of Satan's role in challenging established power structures. The traditional narrative of Satan as the ultimate enemy of good is flipped to reveal a figure who questions and resists unjust authority. This perspective highlights the struggles faced by women who challenge traditional gender roles and societal expectations. By viewing Satan through this lens, feminist thought transforms him from a symbol of evil into a representation of the fight against systemic oppression. In feminist thought, Satan is also reinterpreted as a symbol of empowerment and self-discovery. The figure of Satan, who rejects conformity and embraces individuality, mirrors the feminist journey towards self-assertion and self-realization. This reinterpretation emphasizes the importance of owning one's identity and challenging societal pressures that seek to define and limit individual potential. In this sense, Satan represents the strength to defy expectations and assert one's own path, resonating deeply with the feminist quest for personal and collective empowerment. The emotional impact of this feminist perspective on Satan is both profound and liberating. It offers a reimagined symbol that resonates with the struggles and aspirations of those seeking freedom and equality. By reclaiming Satan as a figure of rebellion and empowerment, feminist thought provides a new narrative that challenges traditional notions of good and evil and highlights the transformative power of resistance and self-determination. This reinterpretation also highlights the importance of examining and questioning traditional symbols and narratives. By reimagining Satan, feminist thought invites a broader exploration of how symbols can be used to reflect and challenge societal values and power dynamics. It encourages a more nuanced understanding of the forces that shape human experience and the ways in which individuals and groups navigate and resist these forces. In this reimagined role, Satan emerges not as a figure of malevolence but as a symbol of the courage to challenge and redefine societal norms. This perspective invites a deeper reflection on the nature of rebellion, the pursuit of equality, and the transformative power of self-assertion. By viewing Satan through a feminist lens, we gain insight into the ways in which symbols can be reinterpreted to reflect and support the ongoing struggle for justice and liberation. In the late 20th century, a wave of fear swept across America, fueled by chilling accusations and a frenzy of paranoia that left lasting scars. This period, known as the Satanic Panic, was marked by intense and often irrational fears about widespread satanic rituals and occult practices. Communities were torn apart, lives were upended, and a wave of misinformation took hold, casting shadows over countless innocent lives. The Satanic Panic began in the early 1980s and reached its peak in the mid-1990s. It was a time when sensational stories of satanic cults allegedly engaging in ritual abuse and criminal activities filled the media. Prominent cases, such as the McMartin preschool trial in California, ignited widespread fear. Accusations of child abuse, linked to supposed satanic rituals, became a media sensation. The stories were often lurid and sensational, with details that were more fabricated than factual. Despite a lack of credible evidence, these claims captured the public's imagination, leading to a wave of panic that swept through communities nationwide. The societal impact of the Satanic Panic was profound. Families were torn apart by false accusations, and innocent people found themselves caught in a nightmare of legal battles and public scrutiny. The accusations were often based on dubious claims and questionable testimonies, yet they led to wrongful convictions and ruined reputations. Parents, terrified for their children's safety, became enmeshed in a web of fear and suspicion, leading to a pervasive atmosphere of distrust and paranoia. The panic was fueled by a combination of factors, including sensationalist media reports, the influence of certain high-profile psychologists, and a general climate of fear. In this environment, the concept of a widespread satanic conspiracy became a powerful narrative that was difficult to challenge. The public was swept up in the hysteria, often driven more by fear and sensationalism than by facts. This led to the proliferation of misconceptions about satanic rituals and practices, many of which were based on little more than rumor and speculation. In the midst of the chaos, the impact on individuals and communities was devastating. Families were torn apart by unfounded allegations, and many people who were accused faced severe consequences, including imprisonment and social ostracism. The emotional toll on those involved was immense. Parents who were accused of horrific crimes found themselves fighting for their dignity and their freedom, while their children suffered from the trauma of being caught in the middle of a media-driven frenzy. The ripple effects of these accusations reached far beyond the courtroom, affecting entire communities and leaving lasting scars. The Satanic Panic also highlighted the dangers of moral panic and the ease with which fear can spread through society. The period serves as a sobering reminder of how quickly a baseless accusation can spiral into widespread hysteria, fueled by fear, sensationalism, and a lack of critical scrutiny. It also underscores the importance of critical thinking and the need for a careful examination of evidence before jumping to conclusions. The legacy of the Satanic Panic serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked fear and the impact of misinformation. It remains a stark reminder of how easily fear can cloud judgment, leading to the suffering of innocent people and the disruption of entire communities. As we reflect on this dark chapter, it is crucial to remember the lessons it teaches us about the importance of skepticism, critical thinking, and compassion in the face of fear and uncertainty. In the shadows of history and the whispers of modern practices, rituals and ceremonies have emerged as a powerful aspect of satanic worship. These rituals, both ancient and contemporary, have captivated imaginations and sparked fears, weaving a complex tapestry of symbolism, belief, and purpose. Historically, rituals associated with satanic worship have been shrouded in mystery and often misunderstood. In earlier times, the concept of satanic rituals was tied to broader occult practices and heretical movements. These rituals were often depicted in grim and lurid detail, fueled by fear and speculation rather than accurate representation. The medieval period, for instance, was rife with accusations of dark ceremonies and sacrilegious acts. During the witch hunts and inquisitions, supposed satanic rituals were alleged to involve grotesque acts and dark ceremonies, primarily driven by paranoia and the desire to control dissent. These ancient rituals were often portrayed as perversions of religious rites, meant to mock or subvert established religious practices. They were said to involve elaborate ceremonies with symbols of power, invocations, and sometimes dramatic reenactments of cosmic battles between good and evil. Yet, much of what was reported was a mix of real practices and sensationalized fiction. The fear of the unknown fueled tales of sinister rites, but historical accuracy often got lost in the chaos of the times. In modern times, the perception of satanic rituals has evolved. Contemporary satanic practices often emphasize personal empowerment and self-expression rather than the dark and malevolent acts depicted in historical accounts. Modern Satanism, such as that practiced by groups like the Church of Satan, has redefined ritualistic practices as symbolic acts meant to challenge conventional norms and celebrate individuality. These rituals are less about invoking supernatural forces and more about personal reflection, social commentary, and the celebration of personal freedom. The rituals performed by modern satanic groups are often designed to be theatrical and symbolic rather than genuinely occult. They may include ceremonies such as the satanic baptism or satanic wedding, which serve to affirm individual beliefs and personal milestones rather than to invoke any actual demonic forces. These rituals use the language of Satanism to make bold statements about human nature and personal liberation. They are intended to provoke thought and challenge traditional norms rather than to engage in malevolent or supernatural practices. The significance of these rituals in satanic worship lies in their role as acts of personal empowerment and defiance. For many practitioners, rituals serve as a way to affirm their beliefs, express their individuality, and challenge societal expectations. They can be deeply personal, providing a framework for introspection and personal growth. The theatrical and symbolic nature of these rituals allows individuals to confront and question their own values and the constraints imposed by society. In this way, rituals in modern Satanism are often more about the celebration of the self and the questioning of traditional beliefs than about engaging in actual dark worship. They provide a form of personal expression and a way to affirm one's identity against a backdrop of societal norms that may feel restrictive or oppressive. The rituals become a means of asserting one's own path and challenging conventional ideas about morality and religion. Despite their often misunderstood nature, these modern practices are a far cry from the sensationalized and fear-driven depictions of the past. They reflect a shift in the use of ritualistic symbolism from the realm of dark and forbidden acts to a more reflective and expressive form of personal empowerment. The emotional weight of these rituals lies not in their supernatural aspects, but in their role as statements of personal belief and rebellion against conventional norms. As we look at the rituals associated with Satanism, both historical and modern, it becomes clear that their significance extends beyond mere acts of worship. They reflect deeper human needs for expression, identity, and challenge against the constraints of society. They serve as powerful symbols of resistance and personal autonomy, making them a profound aspect of the broader narrative surrounding Satan and his place in human thought and culture. Imagine a rally where protesters are wielding flags and banners emblazoned with symbols that stir both awe and fear. These are not your typical symbols of political struggle, but icons tied to a figure long associated with rebellion, Satan. The use of satanic imagery in political and social activism has become a striking phenomenon, capturing attention and challenging traditional perceptions in profound ways. In recent years, satanic imagery has emerged as a powerful tool in social and political activism. Far from its traditional associations with dark forces, Satan has been reimagined as a symbol of resistance and defiance. Activists use these symbols to challenge authority, question societal norms, and advocate for change. This shift reflects a broader trend where unconventional symbols are harnessed to make bold statements and drive home the urgency of various causes. One prominent example is the use of satanic imagery by the Satanic Temple, an organization that employs the figure of Satan to promote secularism and civil liberties. Their campaigns often use provocative imagery to challenge religious privilege and advocate for the separation of church and state. For instance, in a notable case, the Satanic Temple erected a statue of Baphomet, a deity often associated with Satan, on the steps of a state capitol building. This act was a direct challenge to the display of a Ten Commandments monument, aiming to highlight issues of religious equality and secular governance. The imagery of Satan, in this context, serves not as a literal invocation of evil but as a powerful symbol of defiance against religious and societal norms. The Satanic Temple's use of such imagery is deeply intentional, designed to provoke thought and stir conversation about the role of religion in public life. Their actions underscore how symbols traditionally linked with fear can be reappropriated to champion secularism and social justice. Another striking instance of satanic symbols and activism can be seen in various contemporary protests. Activists have adopted satanic imagery to challenge oppressive regimes, fight for gender equality, and advocate for LGBTQ+ rights. The use of such symbols serves to break away from conventional protest imagery and inject a sense of rebellion and urgency into their causes. By incorporating elements associated with Satan, activists aim to subvert traditional power structures and emphasize their commitment to radical change. For example, during protests against restrictive abortion laws, some activists have used satanic imagery to argue for reproductive rights. By adopting symbols like Baphomet or invoking satanic rhetoric, they highlight the intersection of personal freedom and governmental control. This imagery underscores the fight for individual autonomy and the right to make personal decisions free from religious interference. It transforms the narrative around abortion from a purely legal debate into a broader struggle for human rights and personal agency. These uses of satanic imagery in social movements reveal a profound shift in how symbols associated with fear and rebellion are perceived. No longer confined to the fringes of society, these symbols have found new meaning as tools for advocacy and resistance. They represent a powerful form of protest, one that uses the shock value and historical weight of satanic imagery to challenge the status quo and bring attention to critical issues. The emotional impact of this imagery is significant. For those who see these symbols in the context of activism, they represent not just a challenge to societal norms, but a passionate call for justice and change. The use of satanic symbols can evoke strong reactions, from shock and awe to reflection and reconsideration. It turns the figure of Satan from a symbol of fear into one of empowerment and resistance, reshaping the narrative around this complex figure. The presence of satanic imagery in political and social activism highlights how symbols can be redefined and repurposed to fit new contexts and meanings. It underscores the power of imagery in shaping public discourse and driving social change. As activists continue to explore unconventional symbols and tactics, the figure of Satan remains a potent symbol of rebellion, challenging established norms and pushing for a reimagined future. Imagine walking into a courtroom where the stakes are not just legal but deeply symbolic. In this dramatic setting, Satan's figure, often seen as a mere symbol of rebellion or fear, becomes a focal point in legal debates that test the boundaries of freedom of expression. This is where the clash between personal beliefs and legal frameworks unfolds, stirring emotions and challenging deep-seated values. One of the most gripping instances where Satan has played a role in legal battles involves cases where satanic imagery or claims are at the heart of the matter. These cases often challenge existing legal boundaries and force society to confront its own prejudices and definitions of freedom. Consider the story of a school board that refused to allow a group to display a statue of Baphomet, a symbol of Satan often used by the Satanic Temple. This was not merely about a statue but a fierce legal battle over the principle of religious equality. The statue was intended as a statement against the Ten Commandments monument, arguing for equal representation of religious and non-religious viewpoints in public spaces. The case delved into the heart of what constitutes acceptable religious expression in public areas and tested the limits of the separation of church and state. In another compelling legal case, a defendant in a criminal trial used claims of satanic rituals as part of their defense strategy. The defendant argued that their actions, which involved disturbing behavior, were influenced by their belief in satanic rites. This claim ignited debates about the influence of religious beliefs on criminal behavior and the extent to which such beliefs can be used to mitigate responsibility in court. The emotional turmoil surrounding this case reflected not only the defendant's personal struggles but also broader societal fears and misunderstandings about satanic practices. These legal battles often stir intense emotions. For some, the presence of satanic symbols in legal contexts is a direct challenge to their personal beliefs and societal norms. For others, these cases represent a crucial test of freedom, where the right to express one's beliefs, even if they are unconventional or controversial, is put to the ultimate test. Legal debates about Satan also intersect with broader discussions about freedom of expression. The courtroom becomes a stage for exploring how far individuals can go in expressing their beliefs, especially when those beliefs are seen as provocative or contrary to mainstream values. The defense of freedom of expression often becomes a battle for recognition and respect for diverse viewpoints, including those that challenge conventional norms. One case that exemplifies this intersection is the ongoing debates about religious symbols in public spaces. When groups like the Satanic Temple demand equal representation by placing satanic symbols alongside traditional religious monuments, they are not just making a statement about equality but also pushing the boundaries of what is permissible in public discourse. These legal challenges raise fundamental questions about the role of religion in public life and the rights of minority groups to express their beliefs. The emotional impact of these cases is profound. For those involved, it is not just a matter of legal precedent but a personal battle over identity and belief. The tension between personal convictions and societal norms plays out in the courtroom, with real-world implications for those who feel marginalized or threatened by the legal system's response to their beliefs. As these cases continue to unfold, they reflect broader societal struggles over freedom of expression, the role of religion in public life, and the boundaries of legal and moral norms. The presence of satanic imagery in these legal battles forces society to confront its own fears and prejudices, challenging established notions of what is acceptable and what is not. These courtroom dramas, filled with high stakes and emotional intensity, highlight the ongoing struggle to balance personal beliefs with public norms. They remind us that the figure of Satan, often seen as a symbol of defiance or fear, also serves as a powerful reminder of the complex interplay between individual rights and societal values. As the world changes and our understanding of history and culture evolves, so too does our approach to studying figures like Satan. Picture the future unfolding with the same intensity of a storm gathering on the horizon. Our approach to satanic studies is in the midst of a transformation that promises to reshape how we view this complex figure. The future of satanic studies is teeming with new directions that stir both curiosity and apprehension. Researchers are exploring fresh perspectives that challenge old stereotypes and myths. Modern studies are beginning to unravel how Satan has been portrayed not just as a symbol of evil but as a reflection of deeper human fears and societal struggles. This shift is driven by a growing recognition that our understanding of Satan must move beyond simple dichotomies of good and evil, to explore more nuanced interpretations that resonate with contemporary concerns. One emerging trend is the exploration of Satan as a symbol of resistance and rebellion against oppressive systems. Researchers are increasingly interested in how Satan has been adopted by various social movements as a powerful emblem of defiance. This shift in focus reflects a broader interest in how marginalized groups use controversial symbols to challenge the status quo and assert their identities. The future promises a deeper investigation into how satanic imagery is leveraged in political and social activism, transforming what was once viewed with suspicion into a beacon of empowerment and change. In addition, there's a growing interest in how Satan is represented in digital culture. With the rise of the internet and social media, satanic imagery and themes are being reinterpreted in ways that were once unimaginable. From memes to online communities, the digital age is creating new spaces where traditional narratives about Satan are being questioned and reshaped. Future research will likely explore how these digital expressions influence our understanding of Satan and reflect broader shifts in societal attitudes. The role of Satan in future theological discussions is also evolving. Traditional theological views are being challenged by new interpretations that seek to reconcile the figure of Satan with contemporary moral and philosophical concerns. Scholars are examining how modern theology can integrate a more complex view of Satan that reflects the diverse and often conflicting perspectives of today's world. This includes rethinking Satan's role not only as a tempter or adversary, but as a symbol of deeper existential questions and struggles. Cultural discussions are also set to transform. As societies become more inclusive and diverse, the figure of Satan is increasingly being re-examined in light of contemporary values. This includes questioning how satanic imagery intersects with issues of identity, freedom, and justice. Future cultural discussions will likely reflect these evolving perspectives, incorporating a broader range of voices and experiences into the dialogue. As these new research directions take shape, the study of Satan is becoming a rich field of inquiry that touches on theology, culture, psychology, and more. The evolving role of Satan in these discussions promises to reveal much about our ongoing struggles with concepts of morality, identity, and power. The future of satanic studies, therefore, is not just about revisiting old ideas, but about reimagining how this figure fits into our modern understanding of the world. The intense emotions and high stakes involved in these discussions highlight the profound impact that changing perceptions of Satan can have on our broader cultural and theological landscape. As we look ahead, the study of Satan continues to offer a powerful lens through which to explore the deepest questions of human existence and societal change. The controversy surrounding satanic worship and beliefs ignites with an intensity that can shake the very core of societal norms. Picture a storm of accusations, fears, and misunderstandings crashing against the shores of reason and compassion. This storm has been raging for centuries, fueled by the passions of those who view Satanism with suspicion and those who stand firm in their right to explore and express their beliefs. One of the most shocking and distressing chapters in this saga of controversy is the infamous satanic panic of the late 20th century. During this period, widespread fears of satanic ritual abuse gripped many communities. Stories of dark ceremonies and horrific abuses were broadcast widely, sparking a frenzy of allegations and investigations. The atmosphere was charged with hysteria, as people who were accused of being involved in satanic practices faced intense scrutiny and often unjust persecution. The panic led to wrongful convictions, shattered lives, and a deepening mistrust between communities. The emotional toll of these events was profound, leaving scars that would linger long after the panic subsided. Even today, debates surrounding satanic worship remain fiercely contested. On one side, critics argue that Satanism is a dangerous and subversive force, a threat to moral and social order. They view the practice as an affront to their values and beliefs, often exaggerating or misinterpreting its tenets to fit their fears. On the other side, defenders of satanic practices argue that such accusations are rooted in misunderstanding and prejudice. They assert that modern Satanism is often a philosophy of self-empowerment and individual freedom, far removed from the dark, nefarious images portrayed by its detractors. Within academic and religious circles, the debates continue with fervor. Scholars and theologians engage in heated discussions about the nature and impact of satanic beliefs. Some argue that Satanism represents a critical challenge to traditional religious doctrines, prompting important questions about faith, morality, and the nature of evil. Others contend that the study of Satanism is important for understanding the diversity of religious expression and the human desire for autonomy and meaning. The emotions tied to these debates are as intense as they are varied. For those who see Satanism as a threat, the fear is palpable, a fear that challenges their worldview and threatens their sense of moral security. For those who advocate for or practice Satanism, the struggle is equally intense, fighting for recognition and respect in the face of persistent prejudice and misunderstanding. The academic debates also mirror these emotional struggles. Scholars who study Satanism often face criticism and backlash from their peers and the public. They wrestle with the challenge of balancing rigorous scholarship with sensitivity to the emotional weight of their subject matter. The debates within these circles are not just academic, they are deeply personal and often contentious, reflecting the broader societal conflicts over the role and meaning of Satan in our lives. As we confront these controversies, the stakes are high. The debates about satanic worship are not just about a figure or a set of beliefs, they are about the broader questions of human nature, morality, and the rights of individuals to explore and express their beliefs. The intense emotions, the fear, the defiance, and the passion that fuel these debates highlight the profound impact that such discussions have on our collective conscience. In the midst of this turmoil, the quest for understanding and empathy remains crucial. To navigate these controversies is to confront the deepest fears and hopes of humanity, to grapple with the profound questions of what it means to be human and to live in a world of diverse beliefs and practices. The heart of these debates lies in the struggle for recognition, respect, and the right to define one's own path in a complex and often conflicting world. The legacy of Satan casts a shadow that stretches across the vast expanse of human history, leaving an imprint on our culture and thought that is both profound and unsettling. From ancient myths to modern debates, the figure of Satan has been a mirror reflecting our deepest fears, desires, and struggles. At the heart of Satan's legacy lies a complex tapestry woven from threads of rebellion, temptation, and profound existential questions. Satan's role as the ultimate adversary has resonated through countless generations, embodying the struggle between good and evil, order and chaos. This adversarial role has inspired both fear and fascination, serving as a powerful symbol of resistance against perceived injustice and oppression. Through Satan, people have confronted their own limitations and challenged the boundaries of their beliefs. In the ancient texts, Satan appears as a figure of dissent and disruption, challenging divine authority and questioning the nature of human suffering. As the tempter in the Garden of Eden and the accuser in the Book of Job, Satan embodies the tension between divine will and human freedom, reflecting the anxieties of a world grappling with the mysteries of existence and morality. These early depictions set the stage for a legacy that would evolve and expand through the centuries. The medieval and Renaissance periods further shaped Satan's legacy, casting him in new roles and meanings. During these times, Satan became a focal point of religious and social anxieties, as fears of witchcraft and heresy intertwined with the figure of the devil. The vivid and terrifying portrayals in Dante's Inferno and the fervent witch hunts of the era left a lasting impact on how Satan was perceived. These interpretations heightened the emotional intensity associated with Satan, embedding him deeply into the cultural consciousness as a symbol of evil and corruption. The Enlightenment brought a shift in perspective as rationalist thought began to challenge traditional views of Satan. The Age of Reason questioned established beliefs and sought to understand Satan through a new lens of skepticism and humanism. This period marked a turning point in Satan's legacy, as he was increasingly viewed not just as a supernatural being, but as a symbol of rebellion against oppressive dogma and irrationality. The debates of this era reflected a broader transformation in how people understood their own nature and their place in the world. In modern times, Satan's legacy has continued to evolve, influenced by changing cultural, social, and philosophical trends. Contemporary interpretations often portray Satan not as a malevolent being, but as a figure of empowerment and self-expression. The rise of satanic movements and the use of satanic imagery in political and social activism have transformed the figure into a potent symbol of resistance and personal freedom. This shift highlights the enduring power of Satan as a cultural icon, representing the ongoing struggle for individuality and justice in a rapidly changing world. Yet, despite the varying interpretations and shifting perceptions, the core of Satan's legacy remains a profound reflection of human experience. Whether viewed as a symbol of evil or a champion of freedom, Satan embodies the tension between conformity and rebellion, order and chaos. His presence in literature, art, and popular culture underscores the enduring relevance of these themes in our lives. The legacy of Satan is also deeply intertwined with our understanding of fear and desire. The figure of Satan has been used to explore the darkest aspects of human nature, providing a means to confront and process our deepest anxieties and desires. Through Satan, people have grappled with the nature of evil, the limits of human understanding, and the quest for meaning in a complex and often contradictory world. As we reflect on the legacy of Satan, it becomes clear that his impact on human culture and thought is both profound and far-reaching. From ancient myths to modern debates, the figure of Satan has served as a mirror reflecting our deepest fears and aspirations. His legacy continues to challenge and inspire, shaping our understanding of morality, freedom, and the nature of human existence. In the end, Satan's legacy is a testament to the power of symbols and stories to shape our collective consciousness. His presence in our cultural and spiritual landscape is a reminder of the ongoing struggle to understand ourselves and our place in the world. Through Satan, we confront our fears, challenge our beliefs, and seek to define our own path in a world that is as enigmatic and uncertain as the figure itself.